The kitchen of Margaret Ellis's Elmwood home hummed with the quiet rhythm of a life etched in routine. But wait before starting the story. If you want to watch crazy revenge stories with full of betrayal, then you must subscribe our channel. It was 6:47 a.m. on a crisp September morning, the clock's soft tick blending with the distant chirp of sparrows outside. At 58, Margaret moved with the grace of a woman who'd weathered storms. Her hands, marked by calluses from decades as a nurse and faint scars from cooking mishaps with her son Alex, poured black coffee into a chipped mug. Steam curled upward, a ghostly dance that mirrored the memories flooding her mind as she flipped open a photo album on the counter. There was Alex at 5, chocolate cake smeared across his face, his gap-toothed grin a beacon of joy. At 12, fishing with Robert by the lake, the sun glinting off the water. At 22, clutching his college degree, her arms wrapped around him like a shield. Widowed at 32 after Robert's sudden death in a rain-slicked car crash, a semi-truck careening into his sedan, Margaret had rebuilt her world around Alex. The Elmwood house, a 2-story clapboard with peeling blue paint, a sagging porch, and ivy creeping up the sides, was their haven. She'd worked night shifts at St. Mary's Hospital, stitching wounds and soothing cries, then rushed home to tuck Alex into bed with tales of knights and dragons. Robert's absence lingered in the creak of his old rocking chair, the faint scent of his pipe tobacco on rainy days, but Alex's laughter had filled the silence. Soccer games cheered from rickety bleachers, science fair projects pieced together with glue and late-night giggles. Now 32, Alex was a software engineer in the city, 2 hours' drive away. His life a blur of code and deadlines. Yet, his Sunday calls remained her lifeline, a ritual unbroken since he left for college. "Love you, Mom," he'd say, his voice a warm anchor against the loneliness that crept in after her parents' deaths. Her mother from cancer, her father from a broken heart a year later. The mantel was a shrine to their bond. His high school diploma, a tarnished fishing trophy from their last trip with Robert, a sketch of the house he'd drawn at 10, its lines shaky but full of love. That thread began to fray with Elena. It was a golden October afternoon, the air crisp with the scent of fallen leaves, when Alex brought her home. Margaret had spent the morning baking. Apple pie, the crust a labor of love honed over decades, the kitchen fragrant with cinnamon and nostalgia. The doorbell chimed, a sound that jolted her heart, and there he was, taller than memory served, his brown eyes crinkling with excitement. Beside him stood Elena Voss, a vision that stopped Margaret mid-step, raven hair cascading like midnight silk, emerald eyes sparkling with a confidence that bordered on magnetic. Her camel coat and knee-high boots exuding an effortless elegance Margaret had only glimpsed in magazines. "Mom, meet Elena," Alex said, his arm possessive around her waist. "My fiancée." Elena's smile was a work of art, warm, disarming, calculated. "Mrs. Ellis," she purred, her voice smooth as honey, extending a hand with manicured nails. "Alex can't stop talking about you. This pie. It's divine." They settled at the kitchen table, a patchwork of mugs and plates, the afternoon light casting golden streaks across the wood. Elena was 29, a marketing consultant with a razor-sharp mind and a resume that dazzled. Corporate takeovers, a viral campaign that earned her firm national acclaim. She spun tales of boardroom battles and late-night strategy sessions, her laughter a melody that danced with Alex's chuckles. Margaret countered with stories of Alex's youth. His first bike crash that left him with a scar on his knee, the basement laboratory where baking soda volcanoes erupted, the time he cried over a lost goldfish named Bubbles. "Raising him alone," Elena said, leaning forward, her gaze intense and probing. "You're a saint, Margaret. I hope I can be half the mom you were, if I ever have kids." The compliment warmed Margaret's cheeks, and as they strolled the neighborhood later, Elena linked arms with her, leaves crunching underfoot like brittle promises. "We're family now," Elena whispered, her breath a soft cloud in the cool air. "I've always wanted that. Someone to belong to." Margaret's heart swelled, a hollow she'd carried since Robert beginning to fill. For the first time in years, she felt a flicker of wholeness. She waved them off as taillights faded into dusk, the pie tin empty, a smile lingering. But as she washed dishes alone, the water scalding her hands, a whisper of unease stirred, like a shadow at the edge of a lantern's glow, hinting at storms to come. The engagement party was a dazzling affair in a downtown loft, the city skyline a jagged silhouette against a velvet night sky. Margaret arrived in a navy-sheathed dress Elena had selected during a virtual shopping spree, the fabric hugging her frame with a sophistication she rarely embraced. "You'll steal the show, Mom," Alex texted, a heart emoji punctuating the sentiment that made her smile despite the nerves fluttering in her stomach. The loft buzzed with life. Elena's friends, a kaleidoscope of influencers with curated Instagram grids and executives in tailored suits, swirled around her like a current she couldn't navigate. Margaret sipped sparkling water, the clink of glasses and hum of laughter a foreign symphony, feeling like a visitor in her son's new world. Elena swept in, radiant in a gold dress that caught the light like liquid fire, pulling Margaret into the fray with an arm around her waist. "Everyone, this is Margaret, Alex's rock. She's the reason he's so amazing." Applause rippled through the crowd, and Margaret's cheeks flushed with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Later, as fireworks burst outside the panoramic windows, painting the sky in bursts of crimson and gold, Alex drew her to a quiet corner near a potted fern. "Happy, Mom?" he asked, his voice soft but earnest. "More than you know," she said, squeezing his hand, her eyes misty. "Elena's a gem." Wedding planning kicked off with a brunch at a chic cafe. Sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows onto white linen tablecloths. Elena's vision unfolded like a fairy tale. A spring vineyard wedding, 150 guests, a string quartet, a photo booth with vintage props. Margaret offered to host the bridal shower at home, picturing lace tablecloths, heirloom china, and the garden alive with daffodils. "That's sweet," Elena said, stirring her latte with a delicate spoon. "But let's do a spa day. More current, you know." Margaret nodded, swallowing the pang that twisted her gut, her vision of a cozy gathering fading. Her list of Elmwood friends, nurses from St. Mary's, neighbors who'd watched Alex grow, was sidelined for Elena's urban circle. "Your input on the vows, though," Elena added, her smile returning. "That's a must. Family roots matter." Subtle shifts crept in like fog over the hills. During a dress fitting at a boutique with mirrored walls and the scent of jasmine, Elena twirled in ivory silk, the train pooling like liquid light. "What do you think?" she asked, her eyes searching Margaret's reflection. "Stunning," Margaret breathed, her voice catching. "A dream come true." Elena's smile tightened, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face. "Not too old-fashioned. Alex says you love tradition, lace veils, that sort of thing." "It's your day," Margaret assured, forcing a laugh, but the comment lodged like a splinter. Alex's Sunday calls dwindled, replaced by brief texts often interrupted by Elena's voice in the background. Urgent, commanding. "We're good, Mom," he'd say, rushed, the warmth replaced by a mechanical tone. "Catch you later." A family dinner at their city apartment revealed deeper rifts. The table, set for 6 with Elena's sister Carla and brother-in-law Mark, buzzed with chatter over rosemary chicken and roasted vegetables. Carla, a petite woman with a sharp tongue, tilted her head, her wine glass glinting. "Margaret, Alex says you're his rock. Ever find it hard letting go now that he's got Elena?" Margaret smiled tightly, her fingers tightening around her fork. "Every day. But that's what motherhood is. letting go bit by bit. Elena laughed, a crystalline sound that cut through the room. He's mine now. Time to loosen those apron strings, right? She nudged Alex, who chuckled weakly, his eyes avoiding Margaret's. The table joined in, a ripple of laughter that felt like a slap. Driving home under a starless sky, the headlights carving through fog, Margaret's hands gripped the wheel until her knuckles whitened. Apron strings. Just banter, she told herself, shaking her head. Yet the unease grew, a shadow lengthening across her heart, whispering of fractures to come. Spring unfurled its green fingers, the wedding 3 months away, and Margaret threw herself into preparations with the fervor of a soldier fortifying a stronghold. She sewed table runners with their intertwined initials, N.E., in delicate embroidery, her fingers pricked by needles as she worked late into the night. She scoured estate sales for vintage glassware, haggling with gray-haired vendors, and baked test cakes, cinnamon swirl, chocolate ganache, each batch a labor of love for Alex's sweet tooth. "You're a lifesaver," Elena texted, a string of hearts trailing the message, a digital pat on the back that felt hollow. But cracks appeared like hairline fractures in glass. The invitations arrived, elegant eveets with a sleek design she hadn't seen or approved. "We went digital," Elena explained over a crackling phone call, her tone breezy as if it were a minor detail. "Easier for tracking RSVPs." Margaret's list of Elmwood guests, her bridge club, the retired nurses who'd babysat Alex, the neighbor who'd lent a ladder for his treehouse, was absent, replaced by Elena's city contacts. The rehearsal dinner venue sparked a quiet battle. Margaret proposed the Elmwood Inn, its garden where she'd danced with Robert under fairy lights, the air thick with lilacs and memory. Elena countered with a rooftop lounge in the city. "City energy," she said, her smile fixed like a mask, flipping through a binder of glossy photos. Alex called later, his voice weary over the line. "It's her call, Mom. You understand, right? It's their day." "I do," Margaret lied, her voice a mask over the sting, the inn's garden fading from her dreams. But the exclusion gnawed at her, a splinter under her skin. The bridal shower invite arrived, a glossy card for Elena's inner circle, no mention of Margaret or her planned tea. She hosted a small gathering for Alex's side instead, the living room filled with the scent of chamomile and the clink of teacups, but only half attended. Work conflicts, family emergencies, excuses that rang hollow. Elena sent flowers after. Missed it, swamped. So. The bouquet wilted on her counter, petals dropping like tears. A venue walkthrough in late April tested her resolve further. The vineyard stretched before them, vines heavy with buds, the air sweet with earth and the promise of bloom. Elena and Alex debated lighting, string lights versus chandeliers, their laughter a private code that excluded her. Margaret trailed behind, suggesting a photo wall with family snapshots. Alex's first steps, Robert's fishing hat, her own graduation portrait. Elena turned, her expression cool as a winter dawn. "Margaret, we love your help, but it's our vision. Alex and I need room to breathe, space to make this ours." Alex nodded, his eyes fixed on the ground, voice low. "Yeah, Mom. Boundaries." The word sliced deep, a blade through flesh. Boundaries. After she'd rearranged her schedule, driven hours for fittings, dipped into her savings for the honeymoon deposit. Driving home, rain streaked the windshield, thunder rumbling like her racing thoughts, and her phone buzzed. "Alex, sorry if that hurt." Elena's stressed. "Love you," she replied, all good. "See you soon." But as lightning split the sky, doubt roared louder than the storm. Was this love, or a slow, deliberate erasure? The wedding loomed 6 weeks away, A deadline ticking like a time bomb in Margaret's mind. She was at the grocery store, basket heavy with ingredients for a care package. Alex's favorite oatmeal cookies, Elena's herbal teas, a jar of homemade jam, when her phone vibrated with a sharp, insistent buzz. A private message from Alex glowed on the screen, stark against the fluorescent lights. "Mom, I need you to back off. Elena says your help is smothering us. I'd rather lose my mother than lose my wife. Please respect that." The words hit like a sledgehammer, shattering the fragile peace she'd clung to. Lose my mother. Her knees buckled, the cart rattling as she gripped it for support, the canned goods clattering. Shoppers faded into a blur, their voices a distant hum, the lights pulsing like a heartbeat gone wild. Stumbling to her car, rain mingled with tears, soaking her coat as she fumbled with the keys, her breath hitching in ragged sobs. At home, she sat at the kitchen table, the message replayed on a loop, each word a dagger. Smothering. She'd only wanted to share their joy. Driving hours for fittings, funding the honeymoon deposit from her modest nest egg, stitching their initials into the fabric of their future. Elena's voice echoed in her mind. Our vision, boundaries. Had Alex typed this, his fingers trembling with guilt, or was it Elena's hand on his phone, her influence a puppet master string? She dialed him, hands shaking, the phone slick with rain and sweat.
Voicemail.
She left a message, voice breaking. "Alex, we need to talk. Call me." Texted, "We need to talk. Please." No response. Hours stretched into a silent abyss, the house creaking with ghosts. Robert's laughter from the porch, Alex's childhood cries from the nursery. Sleep fled. She paced the hall, photos taunting her. Alex's first fishing catch with Robert. His prom night in a borrowed tux. The wedding mock-up on the fridge with Elena's perfect smile. Lose my mother. The phrase carved a hollow in her chest, raw and bleeding. The pain a physical ache that bent her over the sink, gasping. By dawn, resolve hardened like frost on glass. This wasn't just hurt. It was betrayal, a severing of the thread she'd woven with every sacrifice. A nurse by trade, she healed, not hurt, but as coffee brewed, black and bitter, a fire sparked in her gut. If Alex chose Elena's shadow, she'd illuminate the truth. Quietly, methodically, with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Her revenge began with a question. Who was Elena Voss, really? And how far would she go to protect her son? Margaret didn't crumble under the weight of betrayal. The next day, she drove to the city, her old sedan rattling over potholes, the radio silent as her mind churned. Alex's apartment building loomed like a glass fortress, stark against the gray sky, its modernity a stark contrast to Elmwood's weathered charm. She buzzed the intercom, heart thudding against her ribs. The door cracked open. Elena, in a silk robe that shimmered like a second skin, surprise morphing to suspicion in her emerald eyes. "Margaret, what's this about?" "Family emergency," Margaret said, her voice steady as steel, masking the storm within. "Need to see Alex." Elena's gaze narrowed, lips pursing, but she stepped aside, her reluctance a tangible force. Inside, the apartment gleamed. White leather sofas pristine and untouched, abstract art in bold slashes on the walls, a kitchen island that sparkled with disuse. Alex emerged from the bedroom, hair mussed, guilt etching lines into his young face. "Mom." "What?" She held up her phone, the message glowing like a neon accusation. "Explain." He glanced at Elena, who crossed her arms, her posture a fortress. "I meant it," he said, jaw tight, voice low. "You're too involved. It's the wedding, but it's everything, your calls, your visits, the way you hover." Margaret's chest constricted, a vice tightening around her heart, but she held his gaze, her nurse's calm a shield. "Everything." Like paying your tuition when the scholarship fell through. Holding you through Dad's funeral. Rocking you when you couldn't stop crying. That everything. Elena cut in, her voice smooth but edged with steel. That's history, Margaret. We're the future. Alex needs space from all that baggage. Margaret turned to her, eyes narrowing. And you, Elena, what do you need? A beat heavy as lead hung between them. Elena's lips curved, a predator's smile. Loyalty. Unquestioning loyalty. Margaret nodded slowly, pocketing her phone. The screen dark but the words burned into her memory. I'll give you space. She turned to Alex, her voice a whisper of steel. Call when you're ready to be my son again. She left, the doors click a gunshot in her ears, echoing down the sterile hallway. Back in Elmwood, she didn't unpack the groceries, the cookies and teas a mockery of her intent. Instead, she called her neighbor Lydia, a retired PI with a hawk's eye and a heart of gold. Over chamomile tea in Lydia's cluttered living room, surrounded by stacks of case files and a tabby cat named Sherlock, Margaret confessed her pain. I need to know if she's hiding something that could hurt Alex. Lydia's eyes glinted with the thrill of the hunt. For you. Pro bono. Give me a week. I'll dig deep. That week, Margaret buried herself in work, volunteering extra shifts at the hospital. She bandaged a child's scraped knee with gentle hands, soothed a cancer patient's fears with whispered reassurances, losing herself in the rhythm of healing. But at night, her mind raced, replaying Elena's words, Alex's silence. Lydia's first report arrived via text. Elena's credit score, teetering on the edge from shopping sprees, designer bags, luxury vacations. Debts piling up, Lydia wrote. That consulting gig's a front. Low revenue, high expenses. Next came emails. Hacked legally through a contact with a nod and a wink. Flirty messages with a Chris. Miss your laugh in the office. Merger soon. Dated weeks before the engagement. The timestamps a silent accusation. Margaret's stomach roiled, acid rising. An affair. She needed proof, concrete, irrefutable. She staked out from a cafe across the street, Lydia's binoculars absurdly theatrical in her trembling hands. Evening fell. The city lights a constellation of secrets. Elena emerged, heels clicking like a metronome, into a cab. Margaret followed, pulse racing, the cab's taillights a beacon in the dusk. The bar was dim, jazz weaving through the air like a siren's call. Elena sat at a corner table, laughing with a man, tall, slick-haired, a gold watch glinting. Chris. Their hands brushed. She leaned close, her laugh a private melody. Margaret snapped photos, hands shaking, the cameras click a heartbeat in the silence. Enough. Not yet. She slipped out, adrenaline a live wire buzzing under her skin. The images burned into her mind. Back home, she drafted an anonymous email on a burner account. Ask Elena about Chris. Check her phone. For your sake. Hesitated, fingers hovering over the send button. Then, with a breath, she pressed it. The action a stone dropped into still water. Days later, his car screeched into her drive at midnight, tires squealing on wet asphalt. He pounded the door, eyes wild, voice raw. Mom, is this true? She let him in, feigning shock, her heart a drumroll. What? The email. Lena, she's been lying. The texts, the meetings. Suspense coiled tight as he paced, spilling the confrontation. Elena's denials, her tears, the phone he'd snatched, revealing flirty exchanges with Chris, a business merger that sounded more personal. She swears it's nothing, he said, voice breaking. But I saw it. Margaret poured whiskey. His first sip since college, the amber liquid trembling in the glass. Trust your gut, son. It's never wrong. He crashed on the couch, Elena's calls lighting up his phone ignored. The wedding. Postponed, a whisper on the wind. Whispers spread. Elena's friends unfollowing, vendors circling like vultures. But Elena fought back. A text to Margaret venomous. Stay out. He's mine. You'll pay for this. Margaret's resolve deepened. A quiet fury building. This was war and she was just beginning. Weeks passed in a tense limbo. The air thick with unspoken questions. Alex stayed in Elmwood. The apartment sublet in a hasty scramble. His belongings piled in the guest room like a life uprooted. Margaret cooked meals. Roast chicken with rosemary, mashed potatoes creamy with butter, listening to his rants over the kitchen table. Elena's gaslighting, the debts he'd uncovered on joint accounts. $50,000 in credit cards, hidden behind lies of business expenses. A car loan she'd taken in his name, the payments missed. I feel like a fool, he said, fork idle, his eyes hollow. You're not, she replied, voice soft as a lullaby, reaching across to squeeze his hand. Love blinds us. It's not your fault. Lydia's final dossier landed like a bombshell, delivered in a manila envelope slipped under the door. Elena's past unfurled in black and white. Bounced checks from her sorority days at a prestigious university, a restraining order from an ex-fiancé who claimed she'd embezzled funds from a shared business venture, a lawsuit settled out of court with a non-disclosure agreement. She's a predator, Lydia concluded in a scrawled note. Patterns of manipulation, financial control. Watch your back. Margaret's revenge crystallized. Not destruction but exposure. A surgeon's cut to remove the cancer. She compiled a folder. Photos from the bar, emails with Chris, financial records, the ex's testimony unearthed by Lydia's contacts. Anonymous, airtight, untraceable. She sent it in batches. To Elena's boss at a morning meeting, her social circle via group chat drops, a discreet copy to the ex-fiancé's lawyer. Each send was a pulse, a heartbeat of justice. Fallout hit fast, a domino cascade. Elena's job probation. A formal review triggered by the boss's raised eyebrows. Friends unfollowing. Their silence a louder accusation. A frantic call to Alex, her voice shrill. Your mother's spreading lies. It's sabotage. He played the recording Margaret had found. Lydia's bug from the bar, Elena's voice clear as day. Chris. Just networking. A little fun, that's all. The lie crumbled like dry leaves. Elena stormed the house, makeup streaked like war paint, pounding the door with fists that echoed through the quiet street. You witch. You ruined everything. My career, my life. Margaret opened it, calm as a surgeon mid-operation, her gray eyes steady. Ruined. Or revealed. You did this, Elena. Not me. Alex stepped forward, his frame blocking the threshold. We're done, Elena. Pack your things and go. She lunged, nails flashing like claws, a feral cry escaping her throat, but Alex blocked, his strength surprising them both, guiding her back onto the porch. Margaret dialed the police, her voice clipped as she reported the threat. Officers arrived, their lights painting the house red and blue. No charges filed but a restraining order issued, a legal barrier between them. As sirens wailed distant, Elena spat, her voice a venomous hiss. You'll regret this, Margaret. I'll make you pay. Margaret met her gaze, unflinching. Regret's yours to carry. Leave. Suspense hung in the aftermath. Elena's countersuits looming. Alex's trust wavering as he processed the betrayal. But truth was a tide, pulling debris to shore, relentless and unyielding. Summer waned, humidity clinging like regret, the air heavy with the scent of cut grass and impending rain. Alex rebuilt his life in Elmwood, attending therapy sessions with a local counselor, job hunting for positions closer to home. His resume polished by Margaret's quiet encouragement. She watched him heal, the boy she'd lost to Elena's shadow emerging stronger. His laugh returning like a sunrise after a long night. Elena's downfall accelerated with ruthless efficiency. Fired from her firm for an ethics breach, after the boss reviewed the folder's evidence, she faced a lawsuit from creditors over the hidden debts, her bank accounts frozen. Whispers reached Elmwood, Karma's justice, the cashier at the grocery store muttered, shaking her head. A letter arrived, unsigned, hinting at Elena's next move. Legal action against Margaret, a desperate grasp at redemption. Margaret steeled herself, consulting her lawyer friend Tom, a gray-haired veteran with a dry wit. Over coffee at his office, surrounded by law books and a faded American flag, he reviewed the letter. "She's got no case," he assured, tapping the paper. "Slander requires proof of malice and falsehood. Your evidence is solid. But be ready, she might drag this out." One humid night, a knock shattered the quiet. Margaret opened the door to Elena, disheveled, her once perfect hair a tangle, eyes hollow with defeat. "Margaret, please," she begged, voice cracking. "I'll leave Alex if you drop this. Call off the lawyer, the rumors. Just let me start over." Margaret's heart twisted, a mother's instinct warring with the pain she'd endured. "You chose this path, Elena," she said, her voice steady. "You manipulated him, hid your debts, betrayed his trust. I didn't force your hand, you did. Go." Elena's sob echoed as she retreated, stumbling down the steps, her figure swallowed by the night. Alex, overhearing from the kitchen, hugged Margaret, his arms trembling. "You didn't have to do that." "I did," she interrupted, holding him tight. "For us. For the family you almost lost." The storm peaked with a subpoena, Elena's last stand, a flimsy attempt to reclaim her narrative. Margaret and Alex prepared, gathering witnesses. Lydia, Tom, a co-worker of Alex's who'd seen Elena's temper. The courtroom was a sterile battlefield. Elena's lawyer a young shark with too much confidence. But the evidence crumbled her claims. Photos, emails, financial records, presented with clinical precision. The case collapsed, the judge's gavel a final note, her reputation reduced to ash. Suspense faded to relief as leaves turned gold. The storm passing, leaving a fragile peace in its wake. Winter approached, the house warm with the scent of pine and Lydia's pecan pie, a tradition revived for the season. Alex thrived, landing a job with a tech firm in a nearby town. His apartment a cozy space above a bookstore, filled with books Margaret had gifted him over the years. Elena vanished, her social media account silent, her name a ghost story whispered at Elmwood's diner. She left town, tail between her legs. One crisp December day, they walked the park where it all began, the pond frozen at the edges, children skating with shrieks of joy. Alex stopped, his breath a cloud in the cold air. "Mom, that message. Elena wrote it from my phone. I found the draft after the fight, her fingerprints all over it. I was too late to stop her." Margaret's breath caught, a sharp intake that stung her lungs, then steadied as she processed the truth. "Doesn't change that you're here now," she said, her voice thick with emotion. He hugged her, fierce and unyielding. "I'd never choose her over you. Never. I was blind, but I see now." At Christmas, just the three of them, Margaret, Alex and Lydia, gathered around the hearth, the tree twinkling with handmade ornaments. Alex raised a glass of eggnog, his smile genuine. "To family. The real kind, the one that fights, forgives and holds." Margaret clinked her glass, tears pricking her eyes, the warmth spreading through her chest. to threads that hold no matter the storm. In Elmwood's gentle embrace, the deluge passed, leaving bonds unbreakable, gleaming anew under the winter sun.